You are. You can cook for him, care for him, sacrifice for him, do everything for him, and still lose him. Because men are not loyal to what you do. You are. They are loyal to what you represent. Understand this carefully, slowly. This is where most people get it wrong. A man is not bound by favors. You are. He is not emotionally attached to gestures. He is not chained by kindness. Those things are appreciated, yes, but they do not create loyalty. They create comfort. You are, and comfort is temporary. Meaning is permanent. Men are loyal to meaning. If a man feels that in your presence he becomes a better version of himself, he will stay. You are. If he feels respected in his role, valued in his efforts, and recognized in his identity, he will stay. If he feels like a man around you, he will stay. You are. But if he feels small, controlled, criticized, managed, corrected, or reduced to a project you are trying to fix, he will leave. Even if you did everything right, you are. Because men do not measure love by effort. They measure it by respect. This is why many women are shocked. They say, you are. I did everything for him. And the man quietly walks away. Not because he is heartless, not because he is ungrateful, you are, but because none of those actions touch the one thing that actually matters to him, his identity. A man is loyal to the place where his identity is safe. You are. He is loyal to the place where he is not judged for who he is trying to become. He is loyal to the place where his struggle is seen, not his flaws highlighted. You are. He is loyal to the place where he is respected for the man he is becoming, not criticized for the man he used to be. You can serve a man endlessly. You are. But if he does not feel respected, he will feel trapped, not loved. You can give a man comfort, but if he does not feel admired, he will feel bored, not connected. You are. You can give a man attention, but if he does not feel needed in a meaningful way, he will feel replaceable, not valued. You are. Because men are not looking for someone to do things for them. Men are looking for someone who sees them, sees their effort, sees their burden, you are, sees their silent responsibilities, sees the weight they carry without complaining. Most men live their entire lives unrecognized, not unloved, unrecognized, you are. And when they find someone who recognizes them without trying to control them, they develop a loyalty that is unbreakable. Not emotional loyalty, identity loyalty, you are. And identity loyalty is the strongest form of attachment a human being can have. This is why a man will stay with a woman who does less for him but respects him more. You are over a woman who does everything for him but subtly disrespects him. Because disrespect poisons meaning. And once meaning is poisoned, loyalty dies quietly. You are. Men do not leave loudly. They detach silently. They stop investing. They stop opening up. They stop caring long before they physically walk away. You are. And the reason is almost always the same. They no longer feel like themselves in your presence. They feel reduced. And a man will never stay where he feels reduced. You are. He will stay where he feels expanded, where his ambitions are supported, where his failures are not weaponized, where his masculinity is not mocked. You are. Where his effort is acknowledged without him having to ask for it. Because a man's deepest emotional need is not to be served. It is to be respected. You are. That is the one thing he is loyal to. Respect. And respect is not shown by doing things for him. It is shown by how you speak to him, how you treat his decisions. You are. How you respond to his leadership, how you acknowledge his efforts, how you see his role in your life. You can say, I love you 1,000 times. You are. But if your tone says, I don't respect you, he will believe the tone. Men trust behavior more than words. You are. And they trust how they feel around you more than what you say to them. Ask yourself this, does he feel capable around you? Or does he feel corrected? You are. Does he feel trusted or monitored? Does he feel admired or evaluated? Does he feel like a man or like a problem to be solved? You are. Because his loyalty is answering those questions every single day. Men are loyal to the environment where their sense of self is preserved. You are. That is why some men stay loyal to places, friends, and even jobs where they are respected, even if they are not treated luxuriously, because luxury is temporary. You are. Respect feeds identity, and identity feeds loyalty. If you want a man's loyalty, do not compete in doing more for him. Compete in seeing him more clearly. You are. Recognize his efforts without him announcing them. Trust his intentions without doubting them constantly. Allow him to lead without undermining him. You are. Appreciate his responsibilities without minimizing them. Because when a man feels respected, he feels understood. And when he feels understood, he feels connected. You are. And when he feels connected, he becomes loyal beyond logic. That loyalty is not emotional. It is existential. He stays not because he needs you, you are, but because leaving would feel like losing a part of himself. And that is the kind of loyalty no action can buy, no gift can force, and no effort alone can create. You are. It can only be earned through respect, Men don't care what you do for them. They care how they feel about themselves when they are with you. You are. And that is the one thing they will always be loyal to. Men anchor their loyalty to meaning, not comfort. You are. That single truth explains why so many relationships confuse effort with connection and service with devotion. Comfort is pleasant, but it is shallow. You are. Meaning is demanding, but it is binding. A man can live without comfort for a long time if he believes there is purpose in what he is enduring. You are. But he cannot stay in comfort for long if he feels there is no meaning in where he stands. You are. This is the quiet difference most people overlook when they try to understand why men stay, why they leave. You are, and why their loyalty seems unpredictable to those who measure love by visible effort instead of internal alignment. Comfort soothes the body, meaning grips the soul. You are. Comfort gives relief, meaning gives direction, and direction is what a man orients his life around. He will tolerate inconvenience, hardship, you are, and struggle if he believes he is walking towards something that validates who he is and who he is trying to become. But if he feels that his environment, you are, his relationship, or the person beside him does not recognize that internal journey, then no amount of kindness or care can compensate for that loss. You are. Because loyalty is not built from what is given to him, it is built from what is seen in him. A man does not measure attachment by how much is done for him. You are. He measures it by how much of himself he is allowed to be. If he feels he must shrink, adjust, explain, or defend who he is in your presence, you are. Then the connection slowly erodes, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. He becomes less expressive, less open, less present. And this is often mistaken for distance. You are. When in fact it is a silent withdrawal of identity. He is not pulling away from you. You are. He is pulling back into himself because he no longer feels understood in the space you share. Meaning for a man is deeply tied to his sense of usefulness, competence. You are. And respect. He wants to feel that his role matters, that his efforts are noticed without being demanded. You are. That his decisions are trusted without being constantly questioned. When he senses that he is valued not for what he provides, but for who he is striving to be, you are. A powerful form of loyalty begins to grow. This loyalty is not emotional dependency. It is identity alignment. You are. He stays because leaving would feel like abandoning a place where he is recognized at his core. Comfort, on the other hand, asks nothing of him. It requires no growth. You are. No responsibility, no purpose. And while that may feel pleasant at first, it eventually becomes empty. You are. A man does not want to be in a space where he is merely entertained or catered to. He wants to be in a space where he is respected and needed in a meaningful way. You are. Where his strengths are acknowledged and his weaknesses are not used as weapons. Where he feels like a contributor, not a recipient of constant care. You are. This is why many men leave situations that appear perfect from the outside. They were treated well. They were cared for. They were given attention. You are. But they did not feel significant, and significance is what feeds meaning. Without it, comfort becomes suffocating. You are. He starts to feel like a guest in his own life rather than an active participant in something that matters. Over time, you are. This creates a quiet dissatisfaction that he may not even be able to explain in words. He only knows that something essential is missing. You are. When a man finds himself in an environment where his thoughts are respected, his efforts are appreciated, and his presence is valued beyond utility, you are. He develops a form of loyalty that is incredibly resilient. He does not stay because it is easy. He stays because it feels right. Because he senses that in this place, you are. He is not merely accepted, but understood. And understanding is rare, is far rarer than kindness. Many people can be kind. Very few can truly understand. You are. This understanding does not come from doing more for him. It comes from seeing him clearly, from recognizing his silent battles. You are. From appreciating his attempts to improve without constantly pointing out where he falls short. You are. From trusting his intentions even when he struggles to express them perfectly. These things build meaning. You are. And meaning is what he anchors himself to when life becomes difficult. A man who feels meaningful in your presence will endure challenges with you. You are. A man who only feels comfortable will look for an exit when discomfort arrives. Because comfort does not provide a reason to stay when things get hard. Meaning does. You are. Meaning gives him a reason to fight for the relationship rather than retreat from it. You are. It gives him a sense that what you share is worth protecting because it reflects who he is at his best. You are. This is why loyalty cannot be bought with favors or secured with constant giving. It must be earned through respect and recognition. You are. Through creating a space where he feels aligned with himself rather than distant from who he wants to be. When that alignment exists, you are. He does not have to force himself to stay. Staying becomes natural. Effort becomes voluntary. You are. Commitment becomes a reflection of his identity rather than an obligation he fulfills. Men anchor their loyalty to meaning, not comfort. And when you understand that, you stop trying to win devotion through action alone. You begin to cultivate a connection that speaks to who he is beneath the surface. You create an environment where he feels seen, respected, and significant. And in that environment, loyalty is not requested. It is given freely, because he recognizes that what he has found is not merely pleasant, but deeply meaningful. Respect outweighs service, admiration outweighs effort. That truth unsettles people because it challenges the comforting belief that love is proven by how much you do for someone. It suggests instead that what matters most is not the visible labor, but the invisible attitude beneath it. You can serve tirelessly and still fail to create devotion. You can try endlessly and still feel unappreciated. Because what binds a man is not the quantity of your actions, but the quality of how you see him. Service is external, respect is internal, effort is physical, admiration is psychological, and the psychological dimension is where loyalty is formed. A man may thank you for what you do, but he bonds to how you regard him. He notices whether your words carry belief in him or quiet disappointment. He senses whether your tone reflects trust or constant evaluation. These subtleties matter more than grand gestures because they speak directly to his sense of self. When a man feels respected, he feels capable. When he feels admired, he feels valued. And when he feels valued, he naturally wants to protect the source of that feeling. This is not manipulation. It is human nature. People are drawn to environments where their identity is affirmed rather than questioned. For men especially, respect is not a luxury. It is an emotional requirement. Without it, affection begins to feel hollow. Many confuse service with love. They believe that cooking, helping, sacrificing, and accommodating are the highest expressions of care. These things are meaningful, but they are not foundational. They decorate a relationship. They do not sustain it. What sustains it is whether a man feels that in your eyes he is competent, trustworthy, and worthy of admiration. If he senses that you see him as inadequate, no amount of service can erase that impression. Admiration in particular has a profound effect. It tells him that you see something in him that is worth looking up to. It communicates belief in his character, his effort, and his potential. This belief energizes him. It makes him want to rise higher, try harder, and be better. Not because he is pressured, but because he feels seen in a way that aligns with who he wants to become. Effort alone does not do this. Effort can even become exhausting to witness if it is paired with subtle resentment or expectation. A man may begin to feel like he owes you rather than connects with you. He may feel indebted instead of appreciated, and indebtedness is not a foundation for loyalty. It creates tension, not closeness. Respect, on the other hand, gives him space to breathe. It allows him to feel trusted without being monitored. It allows him to make decisions without fearing constant correction. It allows him to be himself without feeling that he is constantly being assessed. This freedom strengthens his bond to you because he does not feel the need to defend who he is in your presence. Admiration also changes the emotional atmosphere. When a man feels admired, he feels encouraged rather than criticized. He feels supported rather than managed. He feels inspired rather than pressured. This creates a dynamic where he wants to invest more of himself into the relationship because it feels like a place where he can grow. Not a place where he is constantly reminded of his shortcomings. This is why a man may stay deeply committed to someone who does less for him but respects him more. Rather than someone who does everything for him but treats him as a project to improve. The first makes him feel whole. The second makes him feel inadequate. And no one stays long in a place where they feel inadequate, regardless of how well they are treated. Respect is often communicated in small ways. In how you listen when he speaks, in how you respond when he makes a decision, in how you speak about him to others. In whether you acknowledge his efforts without being prompted. These moments accumulate. They form his perception of how you truly see him. And that perception becomes the foundation of his emotional attachment. Admiration is expressed when you notice his strengths and say them out loud. When you recognize his struggles and still believe in his ability to overcome them. When you value his contributions not as obligations, but as meaningful expressions of who he is. This makes him feel significant, and significance is deeply tied to loyalty. When respect and admiration are present, service and effort become beautiful additions rather than desperate attempts to earn love. love. You are. They become expressions of care that rest on a solid foundation of mutual regard. But without that foundation, you are. They can feel like performances that never quite reach the heart of what he needs. Respect outweighs service, admiration outweighs effort. You are, because they speak directly to a man's identity. They tell him who he is in your eyes. And that reflection matters more to him than anything you can do for him. You are. When he feels that you see him as capable, worthy, and admirable, he does not need to be convinced to stay. You are. He chooses to stay because being with you reinforces the best parts of who he believes himself to be. A man stays where his purpose is honored. You are, not where he is entertained. That distinction explains why excitement can fade while commitment deepens, and why amusement can be abundant yet loyalty remains fragile. You are. Entertainment captures attention for a moment. Purpose captures the direction of a life. A man may enjoy where he is entertained, you are, but he roots himself where he feels his existence has weight and his efforts have meaning. Entertainment is easy. It requires no responsibility, no growth, you are, no contribution. It is pleasant, light, and temporary. Purpose, however, demands something from him. It calls him to show up, to invest, to build, to become. And men, you are, by their nature, orient themselves toward what challenges them to rise rather than what simply helps them pass the time. This is why a place filled with laughter, you are, comfort, and pleasure may still feel empty to him if he senses that nothing he does there truly matters. When a man feels that his purpose is recognized, you are, something powerful happens inside him. He feels needed in a way that is not superficial, you are. He feels that his presence is not optional decoration, but essential contribution. This feeling binds him far more strongly than constant excitement ever could. You are. Because purpose feeds his identity, while entertainment only feeds his mood. A man can be entertained anywhere. He can find distraction in countless places. You are. But he cannot easily find a space where who he is and what he is striving for are deeply respected. When he finds that space, he does not take it lightly. You are. He understands, often without words, that he has found something rare, and rarity creates value. Value creates commitment. You are. This is why relationships built purely on fun often struggle when real challenges appear. When difficulty replaces amusement, you are. There is nothing substantial holding him there. There is no deeper reason to endure discomfort. But when he feels that his purpose is honored, you are, he will tolerate difficulty because he believes that what he is part of matters beyond temporary feelings. You are honoring a man's purpose does not mean praising him constantly or inflating his ego. It means recognizing what drives him. You are. It means understanding what he is trying to build in his life. It means respecting the responsibilities he carries and the ambitions he pursues. You are. It means not trivializing the things that matter to him, even if they do not matter to you in the same way. When he speaks about his goals, you are. Do you listen with genuine interest or casual dismissal? When he struggles with pressure, do you acknowledge the weight he carries or minimize it? You are. When he invests time into something meaningful to him, do you respect that space or compete with it for attention? You are. These responses tell him whether his purpose is safe with you. If he feels that he must constantly choose between you and what gives his life direction, you are. He will feel torn. And eventually, he may choose the place where his purpose is allowed to exist without conflict. You are. But if he feels that you understand and support the direction he is moving toward, he will see you as part of that journey rather than an obstacle to it. You are. Entertainment fades because novelty fades. What once felt exciting becomes familiar. What once felt thrilling becomes routine. You are. But purpose does not fade in the same way. It evolves, deepens, and grows stronger over time. When a relationship is tied to purpose, it matures instead of weakening. You are. It becomes more meaningful because it is connected to something larger than momentary feelings. A man wants to feel that his efforts contribute to something that lasts. You are. That what he builds with you has substance. That his time, energy, and dedication are not simply spent but invested. You are. This sense of investment creates a powerful form of attachment. He does not see the relationship as entertainment he can walk away from when bored. You are. He sees it as something he has poured himself into, something that reflects his values and aspirations. You are. Honoring his purpose also means trusting his capacity to lead in certain areas of life. It means allowing him to feel competent rather than constantly corrected. You are. It means giving him the dignity of making decisions and learning from them. When he feels trusted, he feels empowered. And when he feels empowered, you are. He feels deeply connected to the person who offers him that trust. This does not require grand gestures. It is often shown in small, consistent ways. You are. In how you speak about his work, in how you respond to his plans, in how you acknowledge the effort he puts into providing, protecting, or building. You are. These acknowledgements reinforce the idea that what he is doing matters and that you see it. You are. A man stays where his purpose is honored because that is where he feels most alive. That is where he feels aligned with himself. You are. That is where he feels that his life has direction and his presence has value. Entertainment can make him smile, but purpose makes him commit. You are. Entertainment can attract him, but purpose will anchor him. When he looks at you and feels that you understand what drives him, you are, that you respect what he is trying to accomplish, and that you see his role as meaningful, he develops a loyalty that goes far beyond temporary enjoyment. You are. He stays not because he is entertained, but because he feels that being with you is part of something significant in his life. You are, and significance is what gives him a reason to remain even when the excitement fades and the ordinary days begin. Loyalty follows identity. You are. How a man sees himself in your presence. That is the hidden mechanism behind why he stays, why he drifts, and why sometimes he leaves without a dramatic explanation. You are. Because what binds him is not what you provide, not what you say, not even what you feel for him. You are. What binds him is the version of himself that comes alive when he is with you. Every man carries an internal image of who he wants to be. Stronger, wiser, more capable. You are. More grounded, more respected. He is quietly measuring his life against that image every single day. And when he is around you, you are. One question is always being answered beneath the surface. Do I feel closer to that man here or further away from him? If he feels closer, you are. Loyalty begins to grow natural. If he feels further away, distance begins to grow quietly. You are. This has very little to do with visible actions and almost everything to do with emotional atmosphere. In your presence, does he feel confident or hesitant? You are. Does he feel trusted or scrutinized? Does he feel capable or corrected? Does he feel like a man who is becoming something? You are. Or a man who is constantly being reminded of where he falls short? These feelings shape his identity in the relationship, and identity is where loyalty is rooted. You are. A man will stay where he likes who he is. He will pull away from where he does not recognize himself. You are. Because staying in a place that distorts his sense of self feels uncomfortable in a way he cannot always explain. He may not articulate it clearly. You are. He may simply say he feels off or not himself. But what he is really saying is that the environment is not aligning with the person he is trying to become. You are. This is why some men remain deeply loyal to people who are not perfect, not glamorous, not constantly doing things for them. Because with that person, you are. They feel aligned with their best self. They feel calmer, clearer, stronger. They feel understood rather than judged. And that feeling is incredibly rare. In contrast, you are. A man may be with someone who does everything right on paper, yet he feels tense, small, or inadequate in her presence. You are. He feels like he must constantly defend his decisions, explain his intentions, or prove his worth. Over time, this erodes his connection, not because he does not care, you are, but because he does not like the man he feels he becomes there. Loyalty is not just about attachment to a person. You are. It is attachment to the identity he experiences around that person. When you speak to him with respect, he feels respectable. When you trust his judgment, you are. He feels capable. When you admire his efforts, he feels valuable. When you listen without interrupting, he feels heard. These moments may seem small, you are, but they are constantly shaping how he experiences himself with you. And this experience accumulates. If day after day you are, he feels like a better version of himself around you. He will associate you with growth, strength, and clarity. He will feel drawn to you not out of obligation, you are, but because being with you feels like being aligned with who he wants to be. That alignment is deeply addictive in the healthiest way. You are. It creates a bond that is difficult to break because leaving would feel like stepping away from a place where he feels most like himself. But if he feels criticized, you are. Doubted, managed, or belittled, a different association forms. He begins to connect your presence with self-doubt, tension, and inadequacy. You are. Even if you care for him deeply, he may start to feel emotionally tired because constantly feeling like he is falling short is exhausting. You are. He may not blame you directly. He may not even fully understand why he feels the way he does. He only knows that he feels lighter, more confident. You are. More relaxed when he is not in that environment, and that realization slowly weakens his loyalty. This is why tone matters. This is why reactions matter. You are. This is why how you respond to his mistakes matters more than how you respond to his successes. Because in those vulnerable moments, you are. He is watching closely to see whether he still feels like a man worthy of respect in your eyes. You are. A man's loyalty is deeply connected to where he feels psychologically safe to be himself without losing dignity, where he does not feel constantly measured. You are. Where he does not feel like a project to improve, where he does not feel that his flaws are being quietly recorded against him. Instead, you are. He feels accepted as a work in progress, supported in his growth, respected in his efforts, and seen for who he is trying to become rather than who he used to be. You are. Loyalty follows identity. If he feels strong with you, he stays. If he feels weak with you, he withdraws. If he feels understood with you, he invests. You are. If he feels misunderstood, he retreats. Because at the deepest level, he is not choosing a person. You are. He is choosing the environment where he feels most aligned with himself. You are. And when he finds a place where he can look at himself through your eyes and feel proud of what he sees, his loyalty is not something you have to ask for. You are. It becomes a natural extension of how he experiences his own identity in your presence.